Okay, so yesterday we explored the nature of purpose. And I feel that it was quite clear that purpose is inherent in such a way that it's impossible to not be on purpose. It's impossible to be separate from your purpose. And as with everything in life, its underlying function is one of service. Not because it tries to serve, not because it wants to serve, but because it can't help but serve. And again, just to refresh, everything in the forest is free to be what it is. Notice this, that's the only way that the forest can work, is if everything is free to be what it is. And in its freedom to be, it can't help but serve. Notice this, there's no trying, there's no efforting. Life says, be you. Thank you. I've designed you as such to serve. And you can see the human being's dilemma is almost like a constant second guessing. Like, is this the right way to serve? Is it the wrong way to serve? As if that's actually a question. You can see that's what creates the agitation, that somehow you could get it wrong. And we recognize that in purpose, to see that one is not separate from purpose, then there's no longer an agitation. There's no longer a quest to get to purpose. It's fulfilled, it's done. And in recognizing the completion of this, there's a stillness. There's a wellness. And again, this is what fascinates me about this whole exploration, is that we're not trying to get somewhere. We're not trying to change something out there. We're simply recognizing what's already true. And in recognizing what's already true, you see that you have everything. Ta-da! And in recognizing that you have everything, there is this joy that emerges. A gratitude. Naturally, if you saw that you had everything, you see how you'd be abundantly grateful? There'd be gratitude. And so one can recognize if there isn't a space of gratitude, then you're assuming that you're missing something that you're not really missing. And in that exploration of connecting with what is true, at the end of the session yesterday, we kind of hinted on what happens is you start to feel this passion, this aliveness for life. It's like a genuine enthusiasm for being what you are. Almost like you discover that life is a playground and you get to dive in. And and this is very similar to our expressions of passion, where we dive in. And I don't think I'm going to be able to talk about passion without bringing up the very real human experience of passion in intimacy. I think it is a fantastic illustration of how passion expresses itself. And maybe my second favorite part about being human, other than satsang. But you recognize it's its own form of satsang. Let's look at this in the human dynamic of passionate intimacy. The most fantastic intimate experiences is almost like this play of devotion, where you see that your entire being exists to devote yourself to what's before you. And almost like every cell in your body is designed, focused, present to We could say serve, but really we mean please. It's like, oh, I'm made for this right now. That's such passion, right? It's like the entirety of your human experience comes down to this, and you give everything you are. And you'll notice that if there's any difficulty in such a connection of intimacy, it's only because the awareness is not present. Notice this. There's something that says, I can't fully be here right now. There's something wrong. Oftentimes, an inadequacy will show itself that says, if only this was different, then I could be present, right? And this is the beautiful thing about love, especially love in the play of intimacy, because the nature of love being unconditional accepts everything, right? In that there's no judgment toward the inadequacy is included in such a way between two lovers who actually love. One might say, I'm insecure about this, and then the lover says, my goodness, that's adorable that you think that's a problem. That's my favorite part about you. Come here. Right? And then in that love, the other human being can let go and fall in to the moment. See, this is the power of real love, is it sees that there's nothing excluded. It's I love you, the realness of you, not who you imagine yourself to be, not who you think you should be, but the aliveness, the life. Oh man, I'm super excited. It's such a visceral human thing to feel such a devotion. And beyond the sexual experience, we can find the same play of energy in our self-expression. It's almost like, and I'm going to say this in a way that's more telling a story than a truth, so it's pointing. It's more like you discover what you're here to do on the planet. You realize that there's only one purpose for you being here, and it's this. Whatever that is for you. And you have to be cautious that you don't create an image or a story about it. It's more of you recognize with a movement inside of yourself, a flow. Almost like an artist says, I'm here to paint. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. And naturally, in this exploration, we have to make our way through allowing all of the conditioned ideas to fall away of what you should be interested in, what you shouldn't be interested in. Almost something that kills the sincerity of your being, that says it's not okay for you to be you. A great example of that in my own experience was like the play of poetry. When I first started writing poetry, it scared me. Because I'm like, who writes love poems to life? This is ridiculous. This is about the most unmanly thing you can be doing with your time. But in the expression of it, I felt an aliveness, right? Like a deep appreciation, something that felt real and authentic. And I saw that it was challenging the idea that I had for myself, where I was going, who I wanted to become, blah, 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 blah. And so I could see that I was trying to hold on to this image or this idea while suppressing the sincerity that said, I want to sing a song. I want to write in this way. And then eventually the sincerity of that joy won over the fear of losing my idea of myself. And then that actually expanded some years later, where the poetry turned into, the spiritual poetry turned into an erotic poetry. And that really scared me. Because with my Christian upbringing, that's what sends you to hell. You don't do those things. But yet at the same time I felt, but this is real, right? This is alive. This is being human. But I could see all the conditioned ideas that says, no, you can't do that. You'll be judged, people won't understand, blah, 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 blah. But yet, beyond all that noise, there's just the aliveness that says, let me sing. And you see, this is what happens when you see beyond all of the noise about how you should be or you shouldn't be. You start getting in touch with what's really there. What is really alive inside of you. And this is where you're going to find that fire. And it's going to show itself as a deep appreciation for the realness of what you are. For example, we can look at these in the dynamic of relationships, as everything is a relationship. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship with another human being and there's a clarity of heart and mind that understands what's really going on, that when your partner freaks out, you don't take it personally. Do you ever notice that's the big issue in relationship, is the other person goes through their thing and you think you did something wrong? So you immediately make it about you rather than allowing them to have their experience, right? Notice this. When you take it personally, you start to get defensive, you shut down, and you withdraw. And it was never about you. And to see that it's not about you, something in you opens to it. It's like, let me hold you. Let me allow this so that we can see whatever is happening. Again, it's a very much a movement of love that sees it all as included. And so this is what happens inside the self, is there are things that are moving, and then the mind takes them personally, that says, oh, this is about you, or this is going to affect who you think you are. No. But really, this sincerity of aliveness is life wanting to see itself, wanting to experience itself, and actually doesn't have anything to do with who you think you are. Understand, what you are as an expression of life could be more adequately pointed to as a vessel rather than a someone. You are a container for divinity to flow. In the same way that the breath is moving through you, you can see your being is a container for that breath to exist. And the moment you think it's your breath, that it's up to you, then breathing gets difficult. And again, everything in life is birthed from passion. Everything. Watch a flower sprout from a seed and make its way through the soil. Tell me that's not passion. That's not life, being alive. To see all the vibrancies of color in nature as flowers bloom from a tree. Oh my God. It's passion. Almost as if life itself was a great artist. Now here's the aspect that's going to make connecting with passion difficult. Is almost as if we assume some things are of passion and some things are not. And so we repress what is not. And again, seeing that everything is included in such a way that everything in the forest is allowed to be what it is, and everything in the forest serves, regardless if it stinks, regardless if it's making a mess, it's doing what it's designed to do so that life can be life. And in this, in the human experience, it's the same thing. There's 10,000 elements moving within you. All of them is this life force, whether it's your emotional experience, your relationship experiences, your thought processes, everything is an expression of life. So within everything is a seed of passion and aliveness. And also, again, notice, any difficulty we have with any of these expressions in life, it's because we're taking them personally. That's all. And when you see that it's not personal, there's a great allowing. In this space, you start to laugh at your anger. You start realizing this is cute. Wow, I'm really bothered right now. There's such a playful space that can allow all of these things to rise and fall. You see, the entirety of your being, not escaping the divine purpose of all that is, in that everything that moves through you is not by accident. It's designed so that the truth of life might be seen. And we always come around to this as we exhaust ourselves with running away from it. Eventually we find ourselves being still, saying, okay, I'm listening. And then you have your aha moment. You realize what you were rejecting and pushing away was actually there to help you. And so I invite us to, actually no, we have to clarify something about the emotional experience. Because again, this is often what is considered the problematic experience of being human. It's an emotional problem. Even if we say it's a problem that's in the world, why is that a problem in the world? Because it affects me emotionally. Almost as if you were undisturbed emotionally, there would be a great allowing for things to be what they are. And I've said this 1,000 times, but the fundamental misunderstanding about the emotional experience is the assumption that your emotions are responding to what's happening. That's the automatic assumption. And in a way, we've just been conditioned into believing that. That my emotions are happening because of what's happening on the outside. And automatically, we attempt to change the outside to change the emotional experience. How's it going? It's a disaster. Because you start withholding love from everything around you, right? Like if you're having an emotional response because of what appears to be somebody else, do you see how you immediately want to control them? You want to say, stop being you. Which is like, let me take away your freedom so that I'm not disturbed. And no matter how much they change, no matter anything, you're still going to have the same emotional challenge because it's not out there, it's in you. Your emotional experience is an instrument that shows you how you are perceiving. Your emotions are a guidance system that alerts you to your way of perception. And to really see that, you will immediately let go of whatever you're blaming. You see how that would be automatic. If you saw that actually it's impossible for me to have an emotional experience because of what's happening. It's impossible. My emotional experience responds to how I see it. And this is what gives you back to you, is you immediately release the blame, because the blame is a way that cuts you off from your own power. In such a way, to return to wellness, you now have to wait for that to change. So you become a prisoner. Which is why we find ourselves within a society that's constantly waiting for something to change. And it never works. Okay, so this emotional experience it's so profoundly simple in the way that it operates, in such a way that Like imagine this. Okay, so imagine something that feels wonderful. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay, now look at what's happening. Your mind is projecting an image, right? And look at this, nothing's actually happening, right? But the mind is projecting an image. Now, here's the thing. What's the underlying message of that image? Do you see that in some way or another it says, I'm whole, I'm complete, all is well? Maybe it's, I got what I'm missing, which is now I'm whole. Somebody loves me, which is I'm loved, I'm whole. Do you see this? It's not the image, it's the underlying perception. What does it mean? Your emotional response of joy, wellness, wholeness shows you the underlying perception of what you think is happening. Now, if you were to imagine something on the opposite spectrum, something that created unwellness inside of you, do you see how it would point to, I'm not enough? Which is to say, it perceives separation. There's two primary ways of perceiving, and this exists along a relative scale. Wholeness or separation. In everything that you can imagine, in every emotional experience you could possibly have, you are going to perceive either wholeness or separation, which is also to say you will perceive love or fear. And notice this, when you perceive wholeness, love, it feels wonderful. If you perceive separation and fear, it feels painful. Do you see how this pain response naturally points you towards perceiving wholeness? Points you in the direction of love? What happens when you're disturbed emotionally? It shuts you down, forcing you to question what it is you think is happening. And do you see the big discovery in your life as you go through your disturbed experience is you find out, oh, it's not what I thought it was. I thought I was seeing separation. Actually, this is wholeness. Do you see how all of this is happening inside of you? It's been like that your whole life. And it will remain to be that. And see, as you see this, this returns you to you. Do you see how alone you become in your own being? Well, it's like, holy shit, nobody is disturbing me. Nothing in the world is disturbing me. It's me. I'm only experiencing what I am. Forever. Again, as you see this, you understand the absolute value of stillness, right? Because the opposite of stillness, in a way, is running around trying to change things to affect the internal experience. You see, and often this is the chaos of being human. It's like I'll spend time talking to someone, and they will tell me all of the problems and the issues. And they go on and on and on and on about how it's out here. There's no space in them at all to see that they're creating everything. It's like they just can't flip that switch. What they imagine to be out there is just too real. And so what do? I listen more deeply and I ask them to explain in more detail what the problem is so that they can hear themselves. Right? So that they can see for themselves how they are pushing away their own power rather than telling them what they should see or shouldn't see. You hold space. The human experience can be said to be an emotional experience. And I invite you to see how every emotion is either a recognition of love or a fear of love's loss. And see how love is intertwined in it all. Love is the fabric intertwined into everything. Love perceives wholeness. Love perceives the truth. The truth is all is whole. There is no separation. Naturally, within every human being, there's the fundamental drive for love. To investigate it, you realize it's the only thing you're looking for. And as you sit in stillness, you recognize that you are not separate from this love. It's what you are. And in this, I invite you to recognize, maybe take a quick snapshot. If there's anything within you that creates any disturbance, any unwellness in your being, can you see how it's in response to what you think it means? How it's in response to a circumstance that you imagine, and you create a meaning about it. And somehow your meaning says, I'm less than, I'm separate from. Can you see beyond your interpretation, it doesn't mean that at all? That does not exist. In the same way that you could pray to God and say, I have plans this weekend, please don't let it rain. And then it rains and you say, God hates me. Is that really what it means? No. Why is it raining? It has to rain. It's not about you. Do you like life being life? Yeah, okay, well it's got to rain today. It's part of the play. Exactly. Tell them all about your plans. And so this discovery, in whatever way it hits you, we can see in the most immediate way, it returns you to you. And as I see this in my own being, I recognize an aliveness that says, holy shit. You see that there's nothing to be afraid of other than how you see. Do you see this? From this moment on, the only thing that's going to disturb you is your own way of seeing. There's nothing in life that can disturb you. Here's the beauty of this. And often the human mind doesn't like this until it sees how much of a gift it is. In order for love to expand, which is what you crave, you have to see where you don't see love. Do you see how if there's a fundamental drive within you for love to expand, you're asking to see where you don't see love? The unaware mind thinks life's trying to piss you off. No. You're literally asking to be disturbed so that love can expand. In such a way that you've came into this human experience, said, okay, I'm going to travel a path that has darkness so that I can see more light. And as such, every human being comes into this dimensional experience and in some way or another travels a path of darkness. It's a requirement. If there was no play of darkness, there would be no play of love's expansion. This is why you will never get rid of the appearance of darkness. And so in this, for me, maybe for you, there's a passion that shows itself for the disturbance. Where you open yourself up and say, okay, life, I'm ready to play. Where do I not see wholeness? And life will show you. It's kind of like a common question I get on private sessions. Why do I keep attracting assholes? Because you see assholes. You see, you don't attract experiences. You attract patterned way of seeing. You have conditioned perspectives that keep showing themselves. And because you think you're attracting something out there, you're trying to change that something out there rather than changing how you see it. Because notice this, if you change, say you have a pattern that keeps coming back, if you change how you see it, then what was coming back now changes. But it doesn't change at all. You see this? Nothing changes, but everything changes. This is the big confusion in the human experience, is we literally think we are experiencing something outside of ourselves. And so we are trying to create something out there so that we can have a particular experience. Not realizing that every experience is created inside of you, and then you see that experience from within you. And yet the whole world doesn't even change. And I bring up this mechanics of emotion as a real foundational point of understanding. Because if you don't see this, you will get lost in the emotional experience as you move to integrate the insight. In such a way that you'll be passionate about something, and then you'll move forward, and you will see it not working out. What happens if you see it not working out? Do you see that's a perspective of separation? Again, it's an image with an underlying meaning that says, I'm not enough. Right? And if you move forward in your passion, still thinking your emotions are responding to what's happening, you'll try and make it work. Which means you'll get all stressed out, you'll get anxious, and all of this. When really the opportunity is to, again, you're staying so completely in your own being, standing on your own authority. You're moving forward in the direction of your passion, being aware of what it is you think you're seeing in such a way that one might see something working out, but you're seeing other ways to perceive this. What else could this mean? Do you notice all of our time in satsang, the only thing we're discovering is perspectives of wholeness? We take what seemed like it was separation and we saw how it's actually connected. That's so fascinating. We think we're here figuring something out. No. We're seeing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. What you thought was separate isn't really separate. And you see, oh, that's whole. Wow, that feels amazing. Yes. And you see the delusion that happens is You think you're experiencing what you're experiencing because of what I'm saying or because of who I am, but you're the one that's perceiving wholeness. Do you see how irrelevant I am in the equation? You're the one that's perceiving wholeness. And so your emotional response is not because of what I'm saying. It's because of the mechanism of you seeing the truth. Man, in the most innocent way, you can see how lost we are as human beings. Right? Like, in the most innocent, playful, adorable way. You're so confused about what's actually going on. Super cute. And so, here's the thing. And maybe we can just like point directly at this without going around it. But after all the noise kind of subsides, and you're at this point of stillness where nothing's missing, everything's whole, you're swimming in magic, you're infinitely supported, you start to recognize that the point, purpose, and opportunity of your human expression is to be alive in a way in this passion, which is to allow yourself to be yourself and then get a feedback about what you see. And then there's this awareness that is open to see what you see, and that's what transforms your world. That's what expands the experience. Do you see that the only expansion that happens is more love is seen? And this is what's interesting about like all modalities that help, whether it's psychotherapy, whether it's acupuncture, whatever the methodology that helps. Do you see that in all of these methodologies, the foundation of it all is a presence that's held, a space that's held, that allows for one to see that there's no problem. Right? It's pretty much what it is. And that's what creates the healing. Is that we transform our perception where we see, oh, this isn't a problem. And you start to feel well in spirit. And I think in some way, scientifically, we know that disease and all of these things, what are they caused by? Stress. Which is perceiving what? Separation. You see, this is the only thing that asks to be healed, is the way that you see. My goodness. That is all. And so whatever you think the problem might be, which gets projected out there, can you be still and see that it's you that sees? And this is what I love about that stillness, is I let go of what's being blamed. My God, that feels amazing. Yeah.
We've been talking about things, the way we perceive with our thoughts, but I can recognize that, but I can still, you know what I mean? I say, okay, I understand it's the way I'm perceiving. There's no problem, it's just the way I'm seeing. But it's like underlying, I still don't believe it, you know?
That's great.
I mean, I believe.
Well, that's the thing.
But it's like...
it will transform its way through belief when it's no longer something to believe.
Yeah, like I understand, but then if I understand, then there should be no worry, for example, right? There should be no
Yep,
problem because I understand.
exactly. So you
But
don't
then-
understand.
But then it's like you come to real life, or not real life, but
Right.
it's the other way around, and there's still a problem.
Yes. That's what I love to hear the most. I understand, but let's back up that. You see, again, part of the difficulty in integrating this is going to be a form of self-judgment. Forever, that's what's going to be in the way, is that because I see this, I should be able to do this or whatever. If this was true, then I wouldn't worry, da 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 da. And there's a space of understanding that holds both of these experiences with an equality, where you are allowed to forget, and it's perfectly fine. As such, you don't have to worry about your worry. You don't need to fear your fear. Because this is what compounds it and makes it more of an issue. Is to feel that you're worrying and then worry that you're worrying. And that just gets you in this loop that goes nowhere. And so I invite us to see these things with a tremendous amount of softness and compassion for the humanness that we're experiencing. Because again, even though I can articulate these things, I'm still having the same play of worry as everyone else. Maybe it's just a little bit more hilarious to me. And this is it's almost like, and maybe I can only speak about this in a religious connotation. You know those Bible verses that say human beings aren't worthy of God's love or something like that? Man, when I was younger, that pissed me off. I was like, fuck you. But there's a profound truth that's very loving in nature, because it's essentially saying stop trying. Right? You're never going to get there. Do you see the love in that? Do you see how that specific scripture can be perceived from love and can be perceived from fear? And if you perceive it from fear, you say, fuck you. But if you perceive it for love, it's like, oh, thank you. Thank you. And of course, that's what's been done with spiritual texts, is they've been interpreted from a place of fear and then projected onto others. That's how it can remain the same, and you can completely transform your relationship with it. So there's this profound wisdom in our inability to measure up to the truth that we see. Because again, we can see what happens here is you recognize something, you see something, which is, I can't do it. Now, that object, so to speak, that you're looking at, I can't do it, that can be perceived. Is that wholeness or separation? Do you see how it's not really a problem that you can't do it? The problem is in how you perceive it. See, even that, you're not experiencing that. You're experiencing how you perceive it. It's almost like you acknowledge that I can't do it. Oh, okay, well, I guess I don't have to worry about it then. And I'm not even saying this lightly, especially as it pertains to like waking up or this play of enlightenment or whatever. It's not something that you can do. And I'll tell you, when you can discover a profound interest or devotion towards what I'm pointing to, this truth, and recognize that you can't do it, that's when it really starts to happen. Because you stop trying, you get out of the way, and you're almost just resting with a gratitude for that divinity. And then see this beyond the play of belief. What I'm pointing to is something that can be known as not only true, but has always been true and will forever be true. And you can see if something is so true, belief is irrelevant. Right? Belief is thought activity. It's like to rest in a stillness and sense the I am. There's no belief about the I am. It's known as true. And this is often the difficulty because the human experience is predominantly made up of mental commentary. They're trying to find truth with mental commentary, which is they're trying to find something to believe. And you'll notice about everything that you believe, you cannot trust it because you don't really know. Believe is to say, I'm 99% sure, but I don't really know. And again, this is why spirituality creates a space of stillness and presence so that you can sense the truth. So that you can see beyond any doubt that what you experience in this play of being human is the experience of what you are. You cannot experience anything other than what you are. Which is to say, you experience what you create through perception. Even if you were to get a bone broken, you experience the underlying meaning that you give to it. Even to experience physical pain, what we experience is our interpretation of that pain. We take it personally. It's like a bone gets broken and you say, my bone got broken. No, a bone got broken, silly. Not you. It's almost like saying somebody scratched my car. Right? You see how you can have an emotional response to that? How ridiculous. Right? You feel like someone scratched you. And nothing happened to you. Same with if somebody scratches the body. And I understand that might be a little bit more sensitive because there's much more identification around that. But see the underlying principle of it. It's true. So in this, you see that nothing can actually happen to you. You are literally untouched in this world. You'll just get confused about what you are. Man, imagine to recognize this. You're invincible. You're here on this planet, alive, as the creator of everything that you experience. What would be the point of your experience? Go play. You see, if you saw that there was no limitation, you'd check in. It's almost like saying, what sounds like a kick-ass time? What would the expression of me like to experience? And you see, when that comes from a place of wholeness, knowing that you already have everything, do you see how it's impossible for you to be violent in your play? See that? The whole world is scared of freedom because they think I might do something stupid. You probably will, but that's part of it. Do you realize that the only people who are violent are the ones who feel they are not free? You try and break free with violence, right? And I mean freedom in such a way that there's nothing I'm missing. which means you don't have anything that I need. Do you see how I let go of you? It's impossible for me to be violent to you because you don't have anything. So in the absolute freedom of what I am, there is no violence. Even though the world will think you're being violent. This is hilarious. Because you don't do what other people want you to do, they'll think you're being a dick. They'll say, you have unresolved trauma. See, this is funny. And again, I say these lightly, and all of us are delusional in our own way. So welcome to the club. But do you see how when you see another human being as unhealed, like imagine that comes with a bit of an attitude, that they're unhealed. Do you see how underneath that you want something from them that they're not giving you? Essentially saying, if they were healed, then I wouldn't be disturbed. Look at this. Who do you think you're talking to? If it's just you, if you're the one, who are you talking to? It's kind of like when you say that person's unconscious, which is kind of like saying, I see them in an unconscious way. Right? It's like, how do you think God sees them? Do you think God walks around and says that these people are conscious, these people are unconscious? No, he says, I love you. Right? In the consciousness of God, God says, I love you, as you are. Right? Thanks for playing your part. And in that, when you wake up, when the one wakes up, the whole world wakes up. It's done, it's complete. Another Krishnamurti quote. When you discover the depth and the delight of this love, for you, the world has transformed. We're swimming in magic. Oh. And again, to see the truth of these things, passion reemerges. And if passion, and again, we don't want to create like a particular image of what passion looks like or what it has to be. It's more like seeing everything as an expression of this passion. Everything is ignited by the heart of God. This passion shows itself as a freedom to be you, to play. And so maybe as a meditative exercise, to be in this space of stillness, and we recognize that everything that disturbs me is to be disturbed by the way that I see it. And you'll notice that our perceived disturbances are what is in the way from us following the sincerity of our being. Notice this. You will create excuses of disturbances that says, I can't be myself because of this and this and this and this. And so, in a way, you're protecting yourself from something that's not really there. Oh, Lord. And to see this is your opportunity to clarify the truth of what you are so that this love can flow. Because this movement within you, this sincerity that wants to breathe, wants to be alive, is the flow of love. It's the life force. And the only reason we contract and don't let it through is because we're disturbed. In to speak in a way that's direct, but also hear me very gently, this flow of love in you that wants to be expressed, the person that's blocking it is not the rightful owner of that love. In such a way that that love that wants to flow is the love of God. And the person in your mind, which is the one that's afraid of losing itself, which is the one that's afraid of what other people think, which is the one that is not really you, is likened to the devil, which is trying to restrict that flow of love to protect itself. And so, very innocently, I invite you to see the arrogance in that. The arrogance in not letting you be you. You are not letting the aliveness of you, the life of you, the love be what it is, because you're worried about what somebody else might think about a person that doesn't actually exist. In that you can see comically the arrogance in thinking there's a problem. People call me arrogant for not seeing a problem. Such comedy. I think there's a quote on my website that says it's quite arrogant to doubt the miracle you're swimming in. Yeah, to doubt it, to think it's a problem, is really to try and be God. Try and decide how it should be. Oh man, I love seeing those things for myself, even though they're kind of harsh, but they're very loving in my own space. It's like, calm down, Danger. Any questions or comments?
I think for me, one of the, I think the special aspects of what you're sharing is about sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, especially when we're younger, or, more closer to, or at times when we're close to who and what we really are, there is that word sincerity, which is different than authenticity.
Totally.
And the words that we've been using these days around authenticity, vulnerability, and the way sometimes they're used, it's not sincerity, and that's what I love the most about that the truth of sincerity. I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit more around sincerity, its power, what you really mean by it.
Yeah.
Help us kind of really seal it in.
Totally. Thank you. It's one of my favorite topics. And I say that about almost all topics, but because they all point to the same beautiful truth. Okay. So these words like sincerity, authenticity, honesty, you see in a way what they point to, or they attempt to point to, is an acknowledgement of what's real. And in such a regard, sincerity is to acknowledge what's real inside of you. It's almost like you can see the breath itself is sincere because it's real, it's happening. The acknowledgement of sincerity is to be incredibly intimate with yourself, to be incredibly honest with yourself. And notice I'm not saying so much with other people. And I'll tell you that because if there's any painful difficulty you have being honest and sincere with other people, it's only a reflection of your difficulty with being honest and sincere with yourself. If you were honest and sincere with yourself, you'd have no hindrance at all being honest and sincere with the world. Which is great because the reflection that you receive on the surface, a difficulty with sincerity, invites you to go inward. And the thing about the play of authentic humanness is that any effort at all to be authentic is to get its opposite. Do you see that? Any trying to be natural is not natural. And in this, do you notice as we explore these things in the space of satsang, to see the truth of what actually is, you naturally fall into such a space? It's like if we gathered today and I tried to teach you how to be authentic, it would completely miss the point. Rather than, let's say, what's true? What's really real? And you start to see all of your reasons for trying aren't necessary. You see, oh, well, I guess I can just relax then. I guess I could just be myself. Oh, thank God, I don't have to be this spiritual character anymore. I can just be what I am. And for me, that's the greatest freedom. It's what we crave. And also what I noticed about this is, and maybe one of the most profound pointers in one's journey of this discovery, is to realize that discovery is only for you. Only for you. And what I mean by this is, I don't point to these things so that you can know something that you can now tell other people. I say these things so that the one who's listening can see what they are and then let go of other people. You see that? And it's innocently and adorably very common, especially in the spiritual arena, to learn things, informational things, to know something, and then in effect try and tell somebody else what they should or should not be doing. Which again, it's playfully fine. It's just missing the point. Because the real offering of this discovery is that you see it for you, and that discovery gives you freedom to love other people. And the loving of other people is going to make the biggest transformation. Not you knowing how people should be. To love somebody gives them their power back. And in this, the discovery of my own authenticity, I am unconcerned with other people's authenticity. In such a way that if somebody wants to lie to me, that's their current honesty. Do you see the beauty of that? That's where they're at, right? That's what they need to be experiencing to see what they see. And if I'm disturbed by anyone lying to me, then I clearly want something from them. I've set myself up for the disaster. This is the thing about honesty and lying that I love so much. The world is so concerned about it. And I've said many times, the fastest way to raise a dishonest child is to tell them that they have to be honest. Because you don't. You do not have to be honest. There is nothing in life that says that. And so I would say, if you want to be dishonest, I fully support you. 100%. I would just recommend that you pay attention. Watch what happens. Oh, it hurts. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Isn't that fun? And why don't you want to be honest? Because I'm afraid of judgment. Oh, well, that's not real. Oh, so I can just be honest? Yeah. Wow, that feels amazing. It does, doesn't it? You see, in the freedom, like imagine that conversation with a child. If they are totally free to be dishonest, they pay attention, right? If you're rebelling, then you don't pay attention. You're resisting. But in the freedom, it's like I get to explore what I am. I get to explore, oh, this hurts. Oh, plus it's not necessary. It's like you touch a hot stove and it hurts. Life's like, don't do that. Oh. And you say, well, I want to touch hot stoves. Oh, it keeps hurting. And then you realize, oh, it's not even necessary. I don't need to touch hot stoves. I was just trying to be important. Yeah. So you start to see that the pain response is in your benefit. It's okay that that hurts. Life's essentially saying, don't touch that. It's like in a relationship, and again, naturally we'll mess this up and get confused. But to get emotionally hurt in a relationship is trying to grab the relationship, right? It's trying to want something from it that it's not designed to give. And so it hurts. Oh, God, so beautiful. And so in seeing that I can't grab anything, can't hold on to anything, to see all of these things that I'm pointing to, the only option I have is to relax into my authenticity, which is, in many ways, to embrace what I am. Like in all of my perceived flaws. Are they really that? Or is that just a way of perceiving? Really look at this. Even what you think are your flaws or your defects, are they really? Or are they designed by life to serve a purpose? Seriously. Because in my experience, it can be said that my non-reactivity is a character defect because it pisses other people off. But do you see how me being who I am, pissing other people off, is the perfect teacher? Isn't this how you've grown? Is you've been pissed off? Maybe it's perfect. Maybe the way that you are, life is asking so that love can expand. And that can be kind of a tough one. But I really invite you to look at that, because a lot of the pain that you might be carrying is a judgment that thinks there's something wrong with you. Oh my God, and I'm just talking to myself. This is great. And seeing that, holy shit, maybe life, God has designed me specifically to be how I am. Whoa. And in this, I see it in other people. It's like I really like finding experiences that can irritate me or where other people can piss me off. To the point where I'm like, thank you. Thank you for being you. Because it's because of you that I get to see where I don't see the truth. Thank you for being you.
So there's also divine purpose in criminals.
Yes.
Being criminals.
Yes. It's all part of the play. And again, the big terror for the human being is predicated on the belief of death. Right? This is the big concern. Is that because people die, then all of these things are wrong. But if you were to find out that nothing actually dies, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess everything's fine. And then as you see everything's fine, you move from love. And if there's anything that's going to, quote unquote, help, it's going to be love.
I understand this, but it also takes some responsibility away. Like if a criminal says, oh, it's my divine purpose to go around killing people,
Yep.
I can go around and kill people.
Yes.
You know? So where's the...
Okay, now look at what happens here. Look at what happens here. And you'll see this in your own experience. If you see, like for the murderer, if you see that you are absolutely free to kill people, you are eventually going to see that it's not necessary because you're absolutely free. What perpetuates such a violence is a perpetuation of self-judgment. That's its fuel. Is the idea that I'm not free, so in order to be free, I have to do this. And again, it's kind of like you can say that this is the same reflection of being honest. It's like, say somebody is a perpetual liar. If they come into my space, they're going to see that there's no judgment for their lying. Like they're totally allowed to lie. Which they're going to see that means there's no judgment. Which means, oh wow, I could be honest if I wanted to. Finally. Because there's no judgment. Do you see how that space of real freedom says it's okay? Because again, all of the violence, which is its own play of dishonesty, is fueled by a fear of judgment. This is why we see collectively in our society, the prison population continues to expand and expand and expand. Look at how much judgment is wrapped around that. How much withholding of love is wrapped around that. Blame. Look at how much perceived separation, right? Because I'll promise you something. One man's violence is not his violence. It's everyone's violence. It just comes up through that expression. Do you see how that could be so? It's the creation of everyone. And so, in its own way, I honor the violent one and say thank you for allowing us to see ourselves. And then him recognizing he's been forgiven. Do you see how that melts his heart? Do you see how that facilitates rehabilitation? Where it says, could you imagine someone being violent and we get together and say, man, come here. We love you. We're sorry. That's what heals. Not we blame you. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. If the violent one knew what they were doing, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. Goodness. And see, I think we talked about this yesterday, but the play of responsibility is often used as a tool of shame. And not in its appropriate context, which is your ability to respond. And response kind of comes after. It's not the ability to control what you should do or shouldn't do. It's that the doing happens, and then how do you respond? Which is the way you perceive. Do you see this? In its maybe proper context, it has absolutely nothing to do with what you do or you don't do, because here's the big surprise, you're not doing anything. God is doing everything. And then you're telling a story, trying to take credit for it. Look at this. You know these blessings in your life that you know you can't take credit for? Like maybe your talents or whatever. Other people think you're quite awesome, but deep down you're like, I'm not even doing anything. It's like this is just happening through my being. You see that you can't take credit for it. But the human being really wants to take credit. So what do? You take credit for the shitty things. Do you see how the shitty things are no different from the blessings? You see that the shitty things is what made possible the blessings. And if you can see that you didn't do the blessing, you can see that you didn't do the shitty thing. That was a dance in life to expose the beauty, to expose the truth. And so in this, there's no one to blame, including yourself. The world will not like that, because the world needs somebody to blame. And so the world will still blame you, even though you don't blame yourself. But you can allow them to blame you, because they're not really blaming you. They're blaming themselves. You see, can you find a space within yourself, even as just for right now, that doesn't see guilt? In order for there to be guilt, there has to be separation. It's to say that there's this and that. Which is almost like saying, I blame the lightning for striking the tree. Well, why not blame the wind for moving the lightning in that direction? Right? And then someone says, well, if you're going to do that, you have to blame the current of the ocean, because that moved the wind. Do you see how you can't trace it back? Where did it really come from? That's what we're looking for. Who's to blame? And it's a circle. So why are all of these things happening? Why is the lightning striking the tree? It has to happen in order for the miracle to be the miracle. It bothers me. No, it doesn't. What bothers you is how you see it. Do you see this? That doesn't bother you. You get bothered by your own perception. And so everything in life, we can say, oh, this bothers me and this bothers me. Are you sure about that? I mean, you're free to see that, but you see you remain powerless, and you think you're a victim to that thing out there. That doesn't feel good at all. So what's really true? But again, compassionately, human beings aren't necessarily ready to see that. This is all seen in its appropriate time, in the same way that you're not seeing these things today because of your own choice too. This has just been the unfolding of the play of you through grace. You see this? It's through grace that you see what you see today. That's when the spiritual ego gets in there and says, I did it, right? I did all the right spiritual things. No, it's through grace. All right, so that's my ramble on authenticity, I guess. Everything falls and you begin to connect with the presence of right now. Something inside of you says, holy shit. It's the title of my next book, by the way. Holy shit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You see, it's not thank you for this, it's not thank you for that. It's thank you for the whole damn thing. Wholeness. Oh my God.
During your sharing on perspective, how we see the perception, which was, I mean, it was throughout the whole session. It really like struck me really hard because for a long time I've not fully understood something I heard some time ago, and now from your perspective it really made me understand that statement. And the statement was, it was a guy who came to a spiritual teacher and he asked him, teacher, I'm experiencing suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the teacher replied to him was, it's not that you are experiencing suffering, you are suffering, you're experiencing.
Yes, yes, beautiful.
And that was really kind of
Yeah.
I think it just made so much sense now from how you explained it.
Yeah, yeah. You're suffering over how you see. Yeah. And do you see, I mean, imagine someone comes to you suffering. Do you see how sweet that is? Right? Because you see that there's no problem. And you can hold them. It's so sweet. It's like, I wrote an article on this on Elephant Journal called Healing a Wound Not Really There. And I beautifully described this experience I had with a friend where she was, just letting it all out, just crying and crying and crying about everything that wasn't going the right way, about how she's not able to get to where she's supposed to be, and on, just the whole human experience. And, as she's crying, and then she asked me, do you understand what I'm saying? And I say, well, I think I understand, but to me it just sounds like you're scared. And she didn't like that. She said, I'm not scared. Da, 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 and went on and on about, the real issue, about these things out here. And then she goes, do you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, but it still seems like you're scared, and that's okay. It's okay if you're scared. I'm not scared. Da, 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 da. I'm so scared. And it was just this opportunity to hold so that she could see the real issue, that she's just scared. And when we allow ourselves to acknowledge that, there's a softness. We see it's okay. You see, that's the vulnerability, to acknowledge the truth of how you feel, and that's okay. That is your biggest strength, because vulnerability is a strength that says, I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not. Do you see how that could be the perceived weakness? Is I can't be myself. Vulnerability is a strength that says, I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm here to be alive. And sometimes I'm scared, and the fear of that terror points me towards the truth. That's referred to as the fear of God. Another phrase that pissed me off. The fear of God is to recognize that that is actually the only thing you're afraid of, which is only to say the fear of the truth. The only thing we are scared of is the truth. And in so many ways, that's saying the truth that there's nothing to hold on to, the truth that there's nothing out there, the truth that who you think you are doesn't exist, right? It's like our fear of death is that fear of not existing, not realizing the one who dies is already dead. That's part of my favorite part of this job is watching the light bulbs go on. It always comes with laughter.
There's actually so, what I'm experiencing right now is so much playfulness and when I see that, whenever I perceive, whenever I see whatever my narrative is, the gentleness and coming out, just a version of something
Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
And I can just love that as well.
yeah,
At the same time, I'm not taking it too seriously.
yeah, yeah. To take it seriously is to think it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing about ego, is ego itself as a perceived object can be perceived in a multitude of ways. The more real you think it is, the more you want to defend it and protect it. The more you see it's not real, you don't get rid of it, it becomes play. Playful. Where it's like, yes, you can be the character of you. Wonderful. But you don't need to defend it. Trying to resist the character of you is to resist the sincerity. Because it's clearly there. Right? You can't get away from an idea of yourself. It's part of the functionality of being human. It's part of the play. Enjoy it.
So then, would you say that this whole movement, especially spirituality, of trying to get rid of ego,
Yeah.
trying to transcend it, or all
Yeah.
these things, essentially make it go away,
Yeah.
is faulty one, is a problematic one?
It's perfectly designed so that you can find out that you can't. Right? Just like the thing we said yesterday with meditating to control the mind. Meditate, 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 so you find out that you can't control it, and then you let go of it. Same thing with the path of destroying the ego or getting rid of the ego. Because something within you thinks it's the problem, and there's nothing I can say to have you not see that. So you have to see for yourself that you can't get rid of the ego, which means I'm going to tell you that you can't. Right? So you give it everything that you got. So you find out for yourself. And when you see that you can't get rid of it, for one, you don't take it personally anymore, and you let go of it. And to let go of it, you realize that it doesn't even need to be protected. And that's the whole issue, is protecting it. The only thing that tries to get rid of an ego is an ego. Right? And that's what puts you in the loop. But see, that's the comedy about all these spiritual paths, is we're trying to figure out what's the right way. Well, is it this, or is it this, or that? It's none of it. All of them are designed for failure. Just pick your poison. Which one resonates with you? It's like some people, what resonates for them is a business path, right? I'm going to make a bunch of money. I'm going to become the person, so to speak. You see, that resonance is a path of failure so that you discover the truth. That path is no different from a spiritual path. It's all the same path. And do you see how when we discover these things, you realize there's just nowhere to go? There's no more path. It's like, holy shit, I'm already there. there's nowhere to travel to. I'm already there. And then in that, there's a great allowing for everyone to be on the path that they're on, because you see it's all the same damn path. And you can even encourage them in the path that they're on. Right? It doesn't matter. It's all play. This food's ready, it looks like. I'm seriously distracted now, so we're going to have to stop and eat some food. All right. Thanks, guys.